Hello there everyone, and welcome back to Empire Total War with the Imperial Destroyer mod. Last time round, we were clearing out the area and ready to conquest this, and as we can see, I have done that. However, as you might also see down by the year, it actually took me, I think last episode was 1716, so we're looking at 7 years. It took me to more or less clear out the area, and in the process I lost this province, which we can see now is full of Russians. They've been able to deal with their bankruptcy problem. I'm not entirely sure if I went into that last time around, but they had the bankruptcy problem. They were causing quite a mess for them. With that said, we're not actually at war with the Russians anymore. We are still at war with Poland, or we had a peace for some time, but then war erupted again. But this time around, we're not going to look at that. We're going to look at our campaign against the Prussians, because we're going to seize the Prussian territories, or the territories that we lost to Prussia previously. So we're going to go ahead and try to retake these two areas. Then I also quickly want to touch on the fact that I have, since it was 7 years ago, the last episode, well, not 7 years, but in-game 7 years, I've actually been able, just because of my excess money and stuff, I've actually been able to finance a colonial expedition to one of the last areas that we can sort of take from the enemies, and that is this pirate island that we're gonna go ahead and seize. The thing is, though, my first expedition to this pirate island is stuck here, and they failed miserably because the pirate units are super strong. So I needed a lot more men. I thought, oh, they don't have a lot, it's stupid pirates. How hard can that be? And then looking at the garrison, there's only 2 units, and this one is about 10 men, and this one's like 24 or 12 or something. So I thought, oh, that and just some garrison, that will be easily toppled by this. I actually had 1 extra regiment of cavalry, but that was destroyed. My army got totally sacked during that. I was able to take out a few of the pirate units, but the pirate units, I think they have an accuracy of like maybe they have the same, they have 40, but the units are more spread out, so you don't get the kind of concentration, and also they have a sick morale system, or like they've got a lot higher than us, so we've got 7. I think they had upwards of 12. That's what you get for elite units. And as we can see, the Portuguese, this is the Portuguese, right? I don't think, yeah, it's Portugal. Portugal has, under the time I've been trying to take this island, Portugal has sent 2 full stacks against the pirates, and both of them failed. And here we can see the remnants of it. I'm pretty sure there might be some remnants over at this port. So it's been very difficult to take over this place. But I think that I did a lot better than the Portuguese actually, I'm pretty sure. So I think with the added on supply here of 9 infantry units, plus the ones we already have on location, will be enough to deal with the pirates. One thing that was kind of, I mean, the cavalry just couldn't break them. We were firing from the front, attacking them with cavalry in the back, and they just wouldn't break, which was a major problem. But this one, we're gonna go ahead and fight against the Prussians. So I have 1 full stack over here. Probably should remove one of the generals and put in some extra infantry or something. But this is not the army that we're gonna look at the fighting first. It's an army down here, which is like probably the best full stack I have. Well, I only have 2, but this one is newly recruited, and so it consists of a general, Then we've got 4 units of Grenadiers. They have an accuracy of 45, and then you can see the melee defense and morale and stuff is a lot better than normal infantry. Then we've got an elite infantry unit, which is the Queen's Infantry. That has 50 accuracy, and I mean, look at the morale, it's 14, melee defense 18, melee attack 9 is actually not that good. That's equivalent to just 1 point better than a normal soldier. And then just because I imagine that these specific regiments from different areas of Sweden, but still normal line infantry, that they would have their own banners possibly carried in front of the regiment, so I wanted to kind of a colorful look at that, so I put all those special regiments in this one as well, so we combined it. Then we got 2 units of normal cavalry, 2 units of hussars, 2 units of normal 12-pounder guns, and then 2 of the newly recruited 24-pounder howitzers, which are really deadly. I can imagine that firing this towards the concentration the enemy puts on the walls, you can see that clumps of troops, that's going to be absolutely devastating if we manage to get an explosive shot in them on that. And yeah, there's the army. And we're going to go ahead and attack this, which is going to be, I imagine it's going to be quite the cakewalk, since we've got most of it is militia with an accuracy of 25. But what I'm possibly thinking is actually laying siege to this to start off with, and then we could combine the attacks and actually have them go off at roughly the same time. Because if I've taken out this one early, then obviously this one will start to recruit troops to compensate for the loss of this territory. So I'm thinking that we're gonna go ahead and march in here. One thing that I actually just thought about right now is the possibility that there's a full stack hiding in this forest. I'm gonna march out, and then what I'm going to do is I'm gonna send a cavalry unit just up into the forest. So clearly the enemy did not react to that, so we might just be safe. Gonna go ahead and infiltrate, and he got executed, so that didn't work. We're gonna send forwards the army, and it was not intercepted, and that's good. We're gonna send in the cavalry to join in, and with that the fleet can retire and actually lay siege to this port right here. So there we have that. What we're going to do over here is I'm going to enter, and I'm going to take this ship, pick up the army, drop it in one of these ports, probably this one, and then we'll march from there, lay siege to this place. I think that this one could possibly be the tougher of the 2 fights, this one. So we might play this one first, but I'm gonna go ahead and turn. If it turns out that these guys are gonna attack out of the fort, then that's just gonna play into my hands, and that's gonna be perfect, and then we're gonna go ahead and attack that. So I'll see you guys after the end turn. Right, so the enemy decides to attack out of the fort, which is gonna play right into my hands. And looking at the numbers is I've got 4,000 men against 5,000 enemy. The thing is, most of their armies we can see is made up of militia, so they're, the extra men they have, 1,300 extra men, is not really going to do anything, because we're going to be able to smash them as their only militia and stuff. The thing is to smash them in such a way that we can quickly just march in to the town afterwards, so we're going to have to be very thoroughly. So probably you have to wait to the very end and then unleash the fire to destroy them, surround with cavalry and so forth. But without further ado, let's draw into battle as the enemy decides to march out of their fortified position. Finally, it's time to reclaim territory that was lost to us in the beginning of this campaign. Livland will once again be part of the Swedish Empire as we attack and take Riga. There are quite a few new units in this army, as I've already sort of shown you, and hopefully we'll be able to take a quicker look at them as we go through. We got the Queen's infantry right here, but first I want to show you what's going on in terms of the strategy. So I've placed my line infantry regiments, which I think number 7, there's 7 of them, in the center, and then they're flanked by 2 regiments each of grenadiers on either side, and further out there we have 1 regiment of horse and 1 regiment of hussar being out on the flank. I decided not to push too much up here, because if I pushed up through the hill to get good actually fire on the enemy, I would have been able to have to go too far, and then they had the forest of cover, so it wasn't really a good idea to advance there. So we're gonna start off this video with actually a team kill right there, and then we're gonna have a unit of provincial hussars charging straight into this murderous fire. And the thing is, my unit is able to continue fire even though the enemy actually contacts with them, and that is I'm pretty sure that's due to the fact that they were actually charging for the cannons, which I'm now pulling back. Kind of a spoiler alert, I will lose almost all cannons. Well, one of my howitzers is going to be completely destroyed, and the other cannon's going to be down to just a few men. I think it sounded like there was another fight, but I can't remember that there was another fight. One thing, there are just sounds of fighting here. There's going to be 2 more cavalry attacks going in towards here. These guys stopped right before they reached the unit for some reason, or strangely enough just stopped like this, which, I mean, this is going to cause absolute massacre in among the cavalry. One thing that's interesting that's going to happen here is I placed, of course, the cavalry to be able to block enemy cavalry, but enemy cavalry has actually been able to bypass me, so I want to go ahead and slow down her a bit. So the enemy has a lot of cavalry. I put my cavalry to be able to quickly counter enemy cavalry, but because of the sort of suicide charges, I decided to focus a lot of here, and I missed the fact that 2 full units of dragoons have been able to slip past my lines and are gonna attack my cannons in the back and just completely screw up my center. And this is very much a good sort of showcase of what this battle was all about, which was bad micromanagement on the part of me. So this is why I'm gonna lose most of my cannons in this battle. Luckily, I had the Queen's Guard regiment back here in reserve, so I can pull them up to shoot down a lot of the enemy cavalry. As you can see, the Queen's infantry is an elite guard unit, symbolized by the fact that they've got these white powdered wig. In terms of color, they're completely blue and white. And right now it's just an absolute mess of what's going on here. Enemy cavalry attacking. Here are my hussars, actually shooting quite a lot of my own men here. And enemy is now pulling out very strongly out of the fort to attack my center, which is very much weakened at this point. They're not going to put so much effort on my right side, so I'm going to be able to pull up the grenadiers to flank fire from the hill. But I'm going to have... sorry, I don't know what's up with my throat today. Yes, so they're going to be able to pull up here, and I will at a certain point be able to break them, put the militia attack in the center back. One thing that I kind of what isn't going to go very well is, for some reason, the cannons have stopped firing. I imagine that is because of the just another problem with micromanagement. But this cannon, it will be able to fire a few shots of canister in, But canister is so nerfed for some reason. It's nerfed a lot. I mean, this one isn't gonna even... Yeah, for some reason I fire that one straight up into the sky. And for some reason the canister is really nerfed and it doesn't really do that much damage. Which I guess is kind of good, possibly, because... well, I think at close range it should really be able to take a hole out of the enemy unit. But at the same time, you don't want it to be like my Napoleon Total War 3 or other my Empire and Napoleon campaigns, where I rely very heavily on canister to dispel the enemy attacking. So we can see the enemy is you know, we're holding down the line, even though we've been severely attacked here in the center. And we're now, when the enemy cavalry is defeated, they actually still got one dragoon unit operational behind my lines, which I completely missed that they came back. And I'm trying to break down the enemy, but it's not going that well. Let's see. At this point, I guess we can take a look at the some of the specific county-specific units, which is, I think we've got the Österbottens regiment right here. There's not a big difference in between different regiments. This one, the only difference between a normal line infantry unit and this one is the fact that the color on the jacket is blue. It's supposed to be yellow, and I'm kind of disappointed the fact that they didn't have specific regimental flags for the unit. So they would have had, for Österbotten, they would have had a blue flag and so forth. There's another one that we've got Queen's Infantry, Line Infantry. Here we got one that actually is different, which got a different facing color, which is red. So in Värmland, you can see that they're quite different. The thing is, at the time within my campaign right now, they wouldn't actually have, they would have already sort of moved away from having specific colors for different regiments, so everyone should really be blue and yellow at this point. They had phased out those different uniforms. And then we got the next one, which is the Dala Regiment, and I mean, it's once again, it's probably kind of hard to see what's different here, but you can see that the pants and then the underlying vest underneath is white, where it's supposed to be yellow. And then we have the Grenadiers off here to the side with their iconic Grenadier caps. So at this point I'm actually getting a bit of a hold of the battle, and we're gonna see a more tighter line being formed on my side. However, because of, once again, poor micromanagement, I'm gonna have to pull back the Grenadiers, because look at the Grenadiers. The Grenadiers have 20 points extra accuracy compared with the militia units, and there are only about 40 men difference in between the militia unit and the Grenadiers, but still the Grenadiers are losing against the militia regiments. So I'm gonna have to pull back before they actually break apart. Now I think we've looked at all units except the Hussars, which we have just recently gone ahead and recruited. And the Swedish army actually deployed or developed Hussars in response to them facing Prussian Hussars in the field while fighting Prussia, and they realized just how effective the Prussian Hussars were. So they decided that, you know what, we're gonna have to have some Hussars of our own to be able to, you know, scout around, find opportunities where you can inflict damage on communication and so forth. So it really was in response to the Prussian Hussars. I believe we just shot a cannonball straight through the Queen's Guard infantry, which is not good. And there goes another one. So once again, micromanagement not up to par, and we can see now that the Grenadiers have pulled back. They're gonna come back because the Grenadiers have good morale, but this battle is going to cost me 1,600 men out of my army. I will be able, of course, to destroy the enemy entirely, as we can see at this point, but it's going to be a very costly battle, and it's going to cost me, I think, somewhere around 8,000 gold to replenish the army, which is, at this point, given the upkeep of the army units, that's going to be basically an entire turn's worth of gold for me at this point. So very expensive, and a very very poorly fought battle, even though I was able to destroy 5,000 enemies compared to only losing 1,600. It's very expensive and very poor form, and one of my howitzers actually gets killed to the point where I cannot use it anymore, so that unit gets absolutely destroyed. So this battle did not go well in that sense, and I think this is it for this battle. Now, oh yeah, I didn't actually at all mention why I did this in the replay, but that was because after having recorded this episode, I realized that I'd even recorded more than an hour worth of footage, and I decided, you know what, that's not gonna work, so I'll have to cut it down in some way, and I decided to redo the battles, but in replay mode, so I would be able to not only go in close, take a look at the regiments, but I would also be able to go ahead and shorten down the episode a bit. Let's see. There's the Nerke Värmland. I'm not entirely sure why they choose the regiment they did choose, because there are quite a different number of color schemes for different regiments, so it would have probably been nicer for them to choose someone that sort of similar to Nerke Värmland actually changed the facing colors a lot, sort of red and blue and so forth. But with that said, we can see that the battle is over. So let's go back to what I recorded earlier yesterday, actually. And here we have the statistics of the battle. As we can see, I lost a surprisingly amount of men, 1,600 out of my 4,000 men, so almost half the army, which is absolutely shit, really. And the fact that I also lost one of my howitzers, which is even worse. Looking at the highest killers, we actually got the hussars. Partly, I think, because they were able to chase down so many enemies, so it probably wasn't them actually killing them in a straight up fight, but that clearly shows the effectiveness the hussars can be, even though the battle wasn't really conducted as effectively as it could have been. Then we've got the Queen's infantry, and that's obviously because of their accuracy. They've got 50 accuracy, which is 10 higher than a normal line infantry unit, and also that's almost that's twice as much as a militia unit. And then going through here, Grenadiers actually did quite poorly, even though they're supposed to have their 5 points extra. And then the cannons didn't really do anything in that battle, obviously because they were cut down very early on, both units, so that didn't go well. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and let this turn run its course, and then we're gonna attack St. Petersburg for the second battle, and hopefully I'll be able to improve my micromanagement for that battle. And there we have it, we're back after the end of turn, and we've just advanced the division of labor. Scottish philosopher Adam Smith was a firm proponent of the division of labor. He argued that the rate of production would be dramatically increased within industry if work was divided effectively. Wealth of nations and so forth. That means that I am able to go ahead and upgrade all my trade ports, which will do, this will do nicely, surge and 10 plus recovery chance of casualties. That will do very well. He's steady under fire though, so even though he took a lot of fire during that battle, he is going to hold his position. Increasing it here is maybe not the best idea. Trade routes and so forth. We want to increase them in Sweden proper. Let's go ahead and take a look at what actually went down here. So they have basically nothing left, so I can go ahead and auto-resolve this, and this should only cause me about 300 men. Casualties, and boom! The place is taken. We're gonna go ahead. What does that say? 5,000 to replenish? 8,000! It's gonna cost me 8,000 to replenish these guys. Jesus Christ. I mean, it's so... shit, that's so ineffective way of doing this. Jesus Christ. 8,000 to replenish them. Right. I mean, at a certain point, it doesn't even become economically viable to have, say, grenadiers under the system, because I could do probably just as good with a normal line infantry unit at the cheaper the cost. The only thing that was like, it has to be a significant increase in the unit's capabilities, say with the Queen's infantry, but grenadiers, I think they probably cost, they cost a lot. So we see 700 to replenish this one, 400, 800 for this one compared with these, which are about half the cost. Probably cannons are quite expensive, or is it the cavalry that's most expensive? Maybe Queen's infantry, 600. Well, I mean, if we're looking at a cost of 500 to 600 per unit, and every single unit in my army was dented, then that's pretty bloody expensive. Let's go ahead and enact this battle right here. So it looks like they actually increased the amount of troops, or maybe they actually removed some, because they moved troops out of here to this place, which seems stupid and strange. First plan was actually to march around here, but that would take too many turns. So it would actually be easier to go ahead and do this. We won't come into contact with these because they can't move into Prussian territory, because they're not allied in that way. And so the army is landed, and we're gonna go ahead and block. No, oh yes, we're gonna block. I mean, my troops can still retreat through that area. Gonna have to keep an eye on these guys, as they are probably moving to attack my position here. I want to go ahead and check just here. We are increasing the unrest, but they have a lot of troops stationed here. Hopefully I'll be able to possibly cause rebellions and stuff, or a lot of problems in this area. But without further ado, let's go ahead and attack, and we'll lay the siege, because what I want to do is quickly... Oh, I noticed something else here, is that the Hetmans have actually got 2 regions, before they only had 1. So they seem to be advancing against the Polish. And also we got Ottomans going into Klausenburg. The French have done a line straight through here to gone into Bavaria, which is interesting. And the Netherlands own both those regions. Portugal is still free. They've not gone ahead and declared war. There's no war in between them and Spain. But what I want to do before we go ahead and do the last battle of this video is I want to go ahead and merge these 2 armies. And I think the easiest way is probably, hopefully they don't go a fleet there. I think that actually moved away. Oh yes, that's a full stack of Portuguese troops. Hopefully will still be the first ones to attack, so I'll be landing this force right here. I think it lags just because the British, they've owned so much here, and they've probably got tons and tons of troops everywhere. If we see Russia, with barely any territory left, have so many troops, and you know, Denmark having a few full stacks, imagine what the British are doing with this kind of wealth of controlling all of North America. They're probably making quite the big money. I mean, this seems like a lot of troops just to go ahead and attack this, but it's in fact not. Go back to Europe and let's conduct the Battle of St. Petersburg. And so we have arrived at the Battle of St. Petersburg, and really the reason why the video was as long as it was, for the most part, or well, this and the fact that I did a lot of talking over the campaign, almost I think 20 minutes, and then you add on to that about 15 minutes for each battle, that makes for a very long video. So this one I'm gonna cut into quite a lot. The battle actually starts with, quite surprisingly, the enemy hussars charge out of the castle and go ahead and attack my cannons, which I'm not at all prepared for. As we can see, as the enemy has actually been able to corner my men, and they send even further regiments to attack me. And my cannons, I think I lose one of my cannons actually, and the one that's going to be able to still stay in place. But this was caught me completely by surprise here early on. My cavalry, however, since the enemy has provincial hussars against my light hussar or my normal hussars, we're going to be able to win this fight against the Prussians. But it's going to cost me my cannons, unfortunately. Not that that matters, because these cannons are not the cannons that are going to make a big difference. That is my howitzers, which I've put down over here, which have continuously, since almost the start, being shelling this area right here and cutting these guys to pieces. Right now we're not inflicting that much damage, but you can imagine as the thick lines start to line up here, we'll be able to kill quite a lot. And each cannon, I think one of them kills 500, the other one kills 600, so that's 25% of the enemy army completely being destroyed by just these 48 soldiers manning 4 cannons. And at this point I've been able to send off the enemy cavalry, and I'm gonna send my hussars to chase them down. One good thing with hussars chasing down after enemy cavalry is, of course, these guys, they do have their carbines that they can fire from horseback, so they can ride up after and fire at the enemy while riding. So as normally cavalry wouldn't be able to chase up to each other, they can fire at range at the enemy. I'm not entirely sure these guys will be able to inflict any damage to as they was firing into a forest. They actually got one over here, so they got a few, 2 of them right there, and they're going to continue charging these off the map. At the same time, I think this is the point where I go ahead and attack with the main line. So the main sort of part of the battle is that the main line moves up, keeps the enemy locked on the front wall. As we cut them down with the howitzers, I will send the light infantry. I'll send the infantry here on the side, which I've got 3 units on either side, so 3 units over here, 3 units over here. One thing that I noticed here is I did not notice this at all during the actual battle, that my spy, I didn't even know I had a spy in here. The gates are destroyed, which means I could have just, the guys on the side could have just run in through the side, and my cavalry could have just gone in through the back, which would have ended this battle a lot earlier. We're gonna show a little bit more of this battle, but I really want to cut this battle down in terms of how much footage to keep on this, because I don't want to drag it out too much. Sieges take quite a while to do. So let's go ahead and see. I'm sending back my hussars. I'm not entirely sure if I said that in the other battle video, but the Swedish hussars were organized after really Sweden had met the Prussian hussars in battle and seen how effective they were, and so Sweden decided to deploy their own hussars. In our case, in this campaign, I believe the first hussars we met were Russian hussars, I think. So not really the same, but we've seen that the Prussians at this point, or in these two battles, have deployed a lot of hussars. So I guess that kind of proves the point. We're gonna go ahead and take a look at some of the very effective howitzer shots that are gonna go in and just murder in these very thick formations here, where they just cramped people together. Let's see if there's gonna come some more shots coming flying here. We'll follow them. So where are these gonna land? We got one landing right there, and one landing, actually exploding in the air. We got one going overhead, and that one, ooh, landing right in the midst of the Prussians, killing loads of them. You can imagine almost like 50 men or something like that being killed by those shots. And more. And it throws the men around all over the place. So really good, and I already told you, of course, that they kill 1,100 men on their own just by this. And at this point we can see my line infantry is pushing up on the sides. I'm gonna be able to claim the walls on either side, and then send... What I'll do is I send one unit to hold in front of the gate in case the enemy charges out, and then I send 2 of the regiments to climb on either side to make sure that I capture the wall. And I do this on both sides, and on both sides I do believe the enemy is going to charge out, but more so on this side. But eventually I'm able to capture the wall, and then I run my men through. Oh, you know what? The gates were not actually destroyed. Or maybe they were. Or maybe it's that my howitzer shots, by sort of accident while firing early on, might have destroyed it. It looks as though this gate is destroyed, while this one looks destroyed as well, but you can see that... Oh, you know what? It might be that that's a bug of how they look when they're open, so the enemy just keeps them open for some reason. So we'll be able to get in, get at the flank, and win that way. But I don't want to linger on this too much, because I want to go ahead and recruit or fight the pirate battle, or do the video with the pirate battle, because that's going to be pretty interesting to see that. So I think without further ado, we'll go back to the campaign map and we'll call this one a victory. It's gonna end up a lot better than my previous battle, because of course the micromanagement is not gonna be so heavy, as the enemy is just staying put inside the fort. With that said, let's go back to the campaign map and take a look at the statistics of this battle. And here we have the victory at St. Petersburg, so it went a lot better. I still lost one cannon crew, one cannon. I was able to actually make this a decisive victory. Now I want to see what the howitzers killed. Not as much as I thought. I thought they would be closer to 1,000 each, but together they killed 1,100 men out of an enemy army of 4,000, so they killed 25% of the enemy army. Then it's mostly line infantry that did the work. Hussars, not so much in this battle. But then again, it wasn't really an open, quick battle where quick movements and quick maneuvers were necessary. And right there we have that. This area is under our control. Resistance to foreign occupation is 30, which would be consistent of a capital, but it's not a capital, so I'm not entirely sure why this is the case in this area. Once I repair this though, I'll probably be able to successfully hold this position, hold this territory. What will this cost to replenish? 3,000! So not only did we... we performed better, we didn't lose as many men. But still, there's a big difference in between 3,000 and the other one that it's gonna cost me 8,000. But I guess so far I haven't really I've micromanaged smaller units, and I've done those close-up charges and stuff like that. So I guess that's the big difference here. This one's gonna give me 3 repression, and this one's gonna give me 3 happiness, and that's gonna be 6 points. Pulled off of this, but it's still gonna leave me at 8 points of unhappiness. We're gonna lose 1 a turn. I could send the priests over and make sure that the religious unrest is reduced to 0 at some point. At this point, there's only 28% Orthodox right now, and oh, it's actually probably because of the university that they've built. And I don't think I actually need that one over there. What would that one research? Not entirely sure. It does everything at least 30 turns. 15 for this one, but yeah, this one's clearly not needed, so we'll burn that one. Instead, what we can build, it's a church. We'll repair these ones instead, that's good. And then we can repair this one, or possibly, you know what? Possibly what we'll do is actually replenish this army. Can we recruit? No, we cannot. We'll take a little bit a bite out of the replenishment for this army. And you know what? There we have it. Hopefully next turn what we'll be looking at is my invasion of Nassau in the Bahamas. And Sweden will get its place in the sun. The area is already 100% Protestant or 90% Protestant. It will give 15 loaves of sugar at a sugar price of what? 26. That's pretty good actually. So I'll be able to add that on to my trade empire. If this fails, I could possibly go in and take New Orleans, which probably have cotton and stuff, or I could go north, take this from in Canada, and yeah. But as I was talking in the first video, I think the idea was that I would call it quits once I had won made the Baltic Sea to an inner sea, so I had captured all the territories around it, and it looks to be, it's going my way. It's going to be quite easy right now, so I might want to add to the difficulty by starting some form of war against a major power in a colonial sense, which it's because I've recorded so many videos ahead, so if I kind of go ahead and ask you guys for your opinion, I'll have to be able to actually incorporate it in time for it to be relevant. I would have to ask you kind of in advance of what you actually know, so we'll see how I do this. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode, and hopefully I'll see you guys for the next one. Bye!